order something. Do Public Works first. Do we have to have a motion to amend the agenda to do a different committee first?
No.
Okay.
Tom said just to go ahead, so I'm just going to go ahead.
All right.
Well, in Tom's absence, could we address the agenda of the Borough Property Committee? Is the manager's update, please?
I'm sorry, what's this now?
Are we convening Borough Property?
Yeah, okay.
Do you have an update?
Yeah, I have a couple things I have to mention. Okay, before I start, notice that there's a note at the top of the page. I was asked to remind you or tell you that there will be an exec session scheduled on October 20th following the in-person business meeting. Okay, and I also want to take a minute just to explain what I did with the agendas because of the rule that says agendas must be published. Now, I disagree. This is a work session and work sessions do not have to be published. But because Mr. Corbel was concerned about that, I did it a little bit different. And what I did was took a step back from my usual detailed agenda and I just put in categories. Not really going to change anything. Everything is still going to be discussed that you asked to be discussed on the agenda. It's just that I converted things to manager's update, committee, business report, etc. So everything that you asked for will be under some other heading. That's all. That's the only change there really is. The reason being that I don't have to necessarily put everything in there that, for example, the mayor is going to talk about or the council president is going to talk about when it's on the agenda. I just put on police chief's report or mayor's report or what have you. And then whatever they talk about is fine. So that's the reason why you have it set up this way. And at the end of the borough property agenda, the last item is committee business, if there is any. Okay. And I could go further into that, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But if we get into any contentiousness, I'll explain further. I have 3 items to discuss fairly quickly. And then if Mr. Dove is present from the Rotary, he asked Tom Thielacker if he could do a presentation to you, and Tom said yes. So that's another reason why I wanted to have borough property go on. I want to check to see if he's there. I think he is.
Yes, he is in Lewis.
Okay, so in a few minutes, I'll activate him. But let me just go over my report real quick because it's very brief. First, I just wanted to put a note for all the committees about budget. This is the only one I'm going to mention this about or have a note about. We're going to talk about the first draft of the budget next week at finance, but every committee has some influence or some aspect of the budget that affects them. For example, one of the things that was discussed previously was changing tennis passes and changing pool passes and pool registrations and sponsorships, etc. I'm not going to discuss that here now, but that would affect the budget. If you, for example, combine tennis passes with pool passes, that means slightly less revenue. I'm not saying it's a major issue. I'm not saying you should or should not do it. That's up to council. I'm just saying that there are aspects of the budget that are affected by every committee. That's one example. And next Tuesday, the 12th, during Finance Committee, I'll have a first draft. I'm already pretty much done with it. I'm just getting my notes together. It's a balanced budget. And I have some comments in my message that you'll want to look at or that I'll want to talk briefly about. But I will try to be brief then. The second item I wanted to mention, Centennial Clock. This is just for your information only, but since the mayor's on here, it's probably good to briefly talk about it. When we did the grant for the Centennial, one of the things I was asked to include in the grant was some decorative commemorative item like a clock that we could get to remember the 100-year anniversary of the borough. Now, of course, with the pandemic, everything got screwed up and we didn't really quite finish the centennial. I mean, it was finished, but technically it should have gone, I guess, until July of 2020. And of course, the pandemic kind of limited that. So the state has extended the grant sum, and about the only thing that's left in there is approximately $14,000 toward a clock or some other commemorative item. Now, if we're going to change it from a clock, because I specified that, I'd have to get the state to approve any changes. But I wanted to let you know that this grant is good until June. It's not something we should waste time on, though, if we're going to do it. The mayor was kind of leading this. He was the one who had directed me, or asked me rather, to place that item as one of the possibilities in there. And since I believe Mr. Senator Costa also was interested in that idea of having some commemorative item that would place somewhere, and since he helped us get the grant, of course, I did place that in the grant. But I just wanted to mention that now because we're running out of time. Even though the grant is good till the end of June, it will take a while to do this stuff. So I just want to make sure I made a note of that here, and I will carry it on future agendas until it's resolved. Does anybody have any questions? Let me pause for a minute about that.
Yeah, do we need a vote in support of doing the clock? What's the next step? Do we have to acquire a design team or suggest locations, or how should we proceed with this?
Well, I would go through the mayor since it was his idea, but
Here,
it's
Frank.
not something, it's in the grant, and either you go ahead and do that or you give the money back. I mean, there's really,
Mayor Porco is here. Do you want to speak to that, Frank?
Yeah, no problem at all. So what we've done thus far is simply solicit some bids so that we have some form of an idea as to what kind of expense would be entailed. The scope of these clocks kind of spans a pretty broad array. So we've got smaller ones, we've got larger ones. There's ones that like are on a tower, etc. So we're trying to just kind of get our arms around what's the appropriate size and cost for our community. We are targeting putting the clock in the area right by the war memorial and the flagpole in the center of the campus, just outside of the borough building, right, to kind of keep it in a central space. I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
the only issue with that, don't forget, is there is that flag retirement area right in the very center. So we have to kind of keep it off of that.
Yes, correct. So bottom line is that that's what we're targeting. We'll kind of finalize it. My intention here is to involve council, but what I want to do is work with Steve, do the legwork and present some options, and then we can decide as a group. So while I'm spearheading this is still something that I think requires, or at least I'd like to have council's input into this, right? But because we're spending public dollars, even though it's no impact to our budget necessarily, it's still the spending of grant money. And so I wanted to make sure that council's aligned with the decision. And so we'll complete the legwork and we'll present some options here in the next month or so, once the clock folks kind of get back with us with our options.
So we might expect some design options to look at and make.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my only concern is that the grant runs out at the end of June, and you really need to have something ready and in place by late spring. And by late spring, I mean like May at the latest, because it takes a while to end a grant as well. So that's why I wanted to bring it up now, just to remind everybody.
Sounds good.
No other questions. Let me just mention that I have several outstanding items. The only thing that really is current is that the sidewalk repair on Greensburg Pike has begun. Jim will talk briefly about that during public works. So that's all I really have. The second item, though, is the Rotary presentation. So I'm going to activate Bob so he can speak to council if no one has any problem with that. I don't see any problem. So let me go and get him set up here. Bob, I've added you to this. If you could go ahead and make your presentation, that'd be great.
Okay, I don't seem to have the option to turn my camera on for some reason, but that's okay.
I'm not sure. I'll see if I can work on that, Bob.
There should be a button on your lower left screen.
Yeah, there's only a mute button there.
Ah.
So I don't know. I've been on thousands of Zoom meetings. It's the first time I didn't have a video option. But many of you have seen my face before, so I think that's okay. And I lost a front tooth 2 weeks ago, so I look kind of ugly anyway. Okay, this project started with a desire of the Rotary Club to propose that we finance the building of a labyrinth somewhere in Forest Hills. We felt that it would add to the community in terms of attraction to outsiders, as well as possibly increase property values. But that wasn't the main reason. It was just to have a land available to the community. I brought that up to the Parks Committee, and somebody on that committee said, hey, this would be a great Eagle Scout project, and suggested that I take it to Troop 90 and that we partner with Troop 90 on this. So indeed, we took it to Troop 90, and Eagle Scout picked it up as a project. His name is Aiden Liddy. He is quite a young man. He's done a presentation to our Rotary Club on this, and he's very impressive. So he's willing to get together the team. He's already got a design. He looked into materials. He's priced the materials. He's working with a provider for that. And it can fit the budget that Rotary has for this. And there would be a peace pole in the center. The diameter of this would be 27.2 feet, so about 30 feet diameter figure. We talked about some possible locations, either Coke Park or the small park next to the Forest Hills Presbyterian Church. And we've paced things off up there, and there's plenty of space for it. In terms of upkeep and maintenance, the Rotary Club has agreed to maintain the labyrinth and keep it weeded and keep it looking nice. We would also probably eventually pay to have a bench next to the labyrinth. But that's the proposal. If this is something that you'd like to move forward with, I asked Aiden Liddy, and he apologizes for not being here. He goes to Central Catholic, and there was a mandatory meeting for honor students, and he's an honor student at Central Catholic, so he had to be at school tonight. But I got some days and times that he's available. If there's somebody from the committee who would like to walk some of these spaces with him and discuss a location. So he's available any Thursday or Friday after 4 o'clock, or he has a day off on Friday, October 15th, and any time that day would work for him. So that's basically the proposal. And I'm open to questions.
Do we have any limitations on putting something like this in a public park? I think it should be fine. it would add an amenity that a lot of people find very interesting and attractive. There isn't another one close by. There's one in the waterfront near the pump house, commemorating all of the steel mills that once operated along the rivers, but that's the only one I know of that's close.
I don't want to misrepresent this. It would not be as elaborate as the one at the pump house.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Marcus, you have your hand.
I'm in favor of it, but I wonder if he can send us some drawing sketches, because I guess the young man is busy next Tuesday as well. So I don't think he can give a presentation to us next week either. So I wonder if he can just send us per email sketches, drawings.
Yeah, I was prepared to hold this up at my camera to show you the sketch, but I do have it that I can email it to everybody, or should I just send it to one person and that person would send it to the committee?
Send it to Mr. Morris, please. And then he can distribute it
Okay.
to us.
And I have one more.
Marcus.
To me, Koch Park or Cook Park sounds like more bigger, more space, more suitable, but obviously I didn't know how big that, I don't know exactly how big it is, but I think the bigger park sounds like a better idea, but I don't know. I haven't seen any plans.
Yeah, 30 feet across isn't all that big, but you know,
I think it's a great idea. It'd be something that
Mark,
Forest
what?
Hills can really benefit from.
Well, I got your camera working if you want to show them the picture you have.
It's not very elaborate.
No.
And that center spot is a peace pole. I don't know if you're familiar with a peace pole. Some communities have them. Some people even stick them in their front yards. But it's just the word peace in many different languages.
Bob, we have a question from one of our attendees in the chat about how Rotary assures the ongoing maintenance of this facility. What kind of maintenance is involved?
Well, really the only maintenance should be weeding. At some point, the stones might get kicked over, but the stones will be set into the ground, into a trough. So they're pretty solid. And the dimensions of the stones are 16 inches by 10 inches by 3.5 inches.
Can I
So
offer
they're-
a suggestion?
Yes.
Offer a suggestion. I think that once we get some kind of plan for it, you should let our foreman, Jim Thielacker, take a look at it and see, and he can discuss any maintenance issues he sees, because while the Rotary would probably do some maintenance, the public works crew would also probably do a sizable amount of maintenance and would need to make sure whatever was placed there is something that doesn't cause more of a problem for them either. So I would suggest that any detail should go to Jim. He's here listening, but until he sees something, I'm sure he can't comment.
Yeah, we've already volunteered our services to him, and we're doing some work with the Public Works Department in terms of weeding and clean up some other areas of the borough. So we don't see taking this on as a major issue, but sure, I'd be happy to sit down with them and discuss it with them.
Tommy, are you taking the chair back for your committee?
Sorry, yeah, I just got on a couple minutes ago. I was a little late.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thanks, Patty.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob, I just caught the tail end of that, but you could just get us all the the full details, the full information sent over to Steve. He can send to us. I think that's kind of like Marcus and Patty both said. We kind of need to see everything at the same time for when all of us have to take a look at it, kind of make the best decision on where we think this should go and kind of how to move forward and kind of get it going.
What kind of timing, Bob, do you think would be needed for this? When would you think our scout team would be doing this? In the fall, or you're going to do it in the spring, or, what's your timing look like?
Well, he'd like to get on this as soon as possible. So his original goal, which was way out of line, was to try to get it done this past summer. And then he went off on a camping trip for a month. Anyway, things happen. But it's going to depend on the weather, but we're right into Indian summer right now. He's got all the materials lined up. He's pretty much got things ready to go. Once he gets the approvals, he figures it'll take his team of scouts and a few Rotarians are going to help out with the construction. It'll just take a couple days and be done.
Mhm. Okay. Will you also circulate the dates when he's available? And I think I'd like to go to that meeting with him and look at the park situations with our foreman as well. So if you could, when you give the plans, also give the list of dates that he's available to go to a site and do a site selection.
Okay. Yeah, he did say any Thursday or Friday after 4 o'clock or Friday the 15th, anytime during the day.
Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns?
I'm gonna say, you have anything else, Bob?
That's all I've got.
All right, in that case, I think we appreciate you coming out. Yeah, if you could just get some information. I think the biggest thing, like I said, just kind of, I don't think anyone has a problem with it. Just ironing out exactly where it's going to go, kind of how it's going to look, and being able to kind of get approval to get moving.
Okay, terrific. After this meeting, is it a requirement that we do a presentation to council in general?
If you send us the information first, and we can talk about it and see if that's necessary, or if, what we have from you and
Aiden.
the scout Aiden. Thank you.
Right.
What it looks like, if we need anything else.
I don't think we need to vote on anything about it. I mean, there's no ordinance or action needed, just an approval of a space. So.
Okay,
The only issue would be it's a borough property. And so whatever property is picked should probably be selected by council or agreed to by council. That's what I would suggest.
okay. Okay, Steve, I'll get this in an email to you, and thank you for your time.
Okay, I am good on the morning of the 15th as far as I know right now, by the way. That's probably my best day, at least right now, just so you know. And Bob, I think once I turn you off, I might lose you. I don't know if you want to stay on the meeting or not, but you might need to come back on if you want to sit here the rest of the evening and watch what goes on. I don't know that you do, but I don't know that I do. But anyway,
I'm
so
probably
you
going to
know.
go away.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, Tom, are you going to take over here?
Yeah, Steve, what's next? I don't have my agenda in front of me on the way home.
Oh,
from
I'm
work.
sorry. Engineer foreman reports next. Engineer and foreman reports. So engineer Mr. Gillen can go ahead if that's okay with you.
Good, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. The first item I have is to report that the pickleball court, the former tennis court at Cook Park has been resurfaced. We are currently soliciting quotes to paint the new lines for pickleball and the remaining basketball court. And we'll get them back to committee after we receive those quotes. The second item, as you know, we have a DCED blight remediation grant from the state. was awarded on May 25th of this year for $19,800 to demolish 21 Marion Avenue. Since that house is going to be renovated, we can switch to another site. Don Branzel had recommended 6 Demmer Street. However, I took a look at it, and the house is structurally sound and has only 2 minor defects. The front steps leading up to it are unsound, and the chimney has a few loose bricks. So I'm thinking this might be a better candidate for the land bank than for demolition. Once you tear it down, the tax base is gone forever. Well, not necessarily forever, but probably because it's a small building lot in an older neighborhood. But I would think that looking at it, at least from the outside, that it's not in a bad enough condition that it warrants demolition at this time. So I would urge, go ahead.
Could I suggest something? Could you talk directly to Don Branzel? He's in tomorrow, he's in Thursday, and you two talk and look at all the different possibilities he has, because you're the two who have to agree, since you got the grant and everything. So it'd be just easier if we could eliminate one step of me getting in the middle and just talk directly with Don.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be meeting with Donna and Jim Thielacker to look at a problem on street with drainage tomorrow with a roof drain. So I will bring it up at that time. The only other item I have.
Let us know. No, sorry, real quick. Obviously we don't need to use it. If there's no houses that need tore down, we're not going to, I don't think we should tear something down just because we obviously got the money,
That's correct.
Especially
Final item.
if we
Go ahead,
consider
sorry.
the land bank, that would also return it to the tax base. So that would be important to do that. I think
Yes.
they are taking solicitations of properties this month. So we should get that over to Ann Lewis quickly if we're going to do that.
I'm not sure I remember how to do that. Are you sure? Is that something council has to approve right at a meeting?
I'm not sure whether we need to vote on it, but I'll check with Ann Lewis tomorrow and let you know. I know they did put out a call for nominations for properties to go to the land bank for their November meeting. So if we're going to do it, we need to do it soon.
Okay, I thought the deadline was September, but maybe not. I might have misread something.
Okay.
The only other item I have is to report that from the bird sanctuary observation deck, with lumber prices starting to stabilize, we've requested an updated cost estimate for the deck and for a smaller version of the deck, but I have not received them yet. I asked for them to be turned in by today, but I did not receive them. So once I get that, I will turn that in, and you can use that to assist in your budgeting for this project for our next year. That's all I have.
Sounds good, Dave. Thank you. Anybody have any
Cool.
questions for Dave?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that rather than using lumber on this project, that you use those synthetic materials. I think the price is relatively close, but the maintenance and the time period that it will last will be much better, I believe. I don't know if there's any preference coming out of the group that's pushing it, but if we do have a choice, I would suggest looking into the option of getting and using that synthetic or plastic material. They have the screws and everything for it now. It's a lot easier to put together. So I would just like to suggest that be considered for the final project. And I think it's close in terms of the cost.
I
Yeah,
think
we did have a,
they
Go
also
ahead.
make some of those reconstituted plastic materials out of recovered plastic. So that would be consistent with the EAC goals as well, to make it out of recovered plastic. And those are pretty cheap.
the quote that I had gotten several months ago did include that option. So I'll have them redo that quote also.
Thank you.
Anything else for Dave? All right. If not, thanks, Dave. We'll go to the foreman's report then.
Yeah, the first thing was the Avenwell large piece of playground equipment over there. we have two things. We have a swing set and then we have that large piece of equipment that has all kind of different things coming off it. The unfortunate thing is there's wooden womanized posts that are the main supports for that. Two of them have rotted away. It's still safe, but we had to block that section off with snow fence and so that the kids could use the rest of it. It's still okay, but it's starting to deteriorate bad, the parts that are down in the ground. So it's going to need replaced here. So we got one quote of like around $64,000. Steve, does that sound right? Okay. But anyway, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. The next thing is the fire. We got a quote for the fire alarm system for the large garage in the back, which we have over $1 million worth of equipment in. And it came in at $9,950 plus a $50 month monitoring fee through SSA. Steve put in there about the things on the thing here. So, but we just wanted to bring it to your attention. I think it's pretty important that we move on this pretty quick. Like I said, if that truck would have been inside that garage, it could have been catastrophic. The other thing is item number 3. I'd like to have the engineer prepare specs for the Westinghouse Lodge for all the painting and cleaning. And we may need to replace some iron railing that's starting to rot really bad. But I'd like to get that process started so that we can have this work done come springtime.
May I speak to that? I would like to add to that rec lodge issue, the cleaning out of the basement, and including something to do a repair of the dehumidification. It's quite moldy down there, and I'm concerned that the mold will travel into the upper areas of the building as well. So if you could include that in that task, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the last thing I got is over at the Westinghouse Rec Lodge. There's a large brick, like fireplace charcoal pit. We've repaired it a couple times here, but Benny told me a few weeks ago that it's actually getting to the point where the whole thing needs to be tore completely out because the top's all cracked and it's starting to fall in. And I mean, it's safe. Nobody's going to get hurt over there, but I'm recommending removing it. And we actually have a couple brand new, smaller charcoal grills that we could put there in place of that big brick item.
I have no objection to that. If you have a comment on it.
Let's just add a couple things to all these things. First, if there is no objection from council in general, we're just going to do that for item 4. That would remove that huge brick thing, but I don't think anybody has any attraction, or as far as I know, that's not something that was placed there by anybody necessarily that's a relative or that's a monument to somebody or anything like that. So if you're okay with that, we're just going to do it. I don't see any objection. And then the other two things, the number 2 and 3, Jim and I are going to put that in the capital plan, which I will place. Well, we should have some discussion of that next week at Finance Committee, although I don't know how much discussion, because of course it'll be a busy night with budget and everything. But in any case, I will put that there, and we're going to add the Avenue L playground equipment into that too. And then you can decide whether or not you want to accept that, or even if you don't want to accept it, we really should put things like that into the plan, because you can always move it around however you want. You can always decide to move it to 10 years from now if you like, but it should still be there when we notice these issues, coming up. That's what the idea behind having a capital plan is. So I just want to comment on that.
Steve, I would like to reinforce that and ask if you put in the capital plan some heavy-duty metal shelving to secure the documents that are currently on wooden pallets in the Westinghouse Rec Lodge basement. They need to be off the floor and in a dry, secure area. So if you could order in the capital budget some heavy-duty metal shelving where appropriate, storage shelving that would be used for that would be better than having them on wooden pallets shrink wrapped on the floor.
Well, what we usually do is we put a general topic on there, and then in my commentary include in there all the different things we're talking about, including there. So that's what we will do. Now, the only thing I'm concerned about is, well, I might not have all this detail ready by the 12th because I have to take some time off later this week and on Monday. You may have noticed if you looked at my schedule, that I handed out to everybody with the email. So I may be a little bit late in getting some of that done, but the capital plan is not something that's a critical, timely thing from the point of view of approval. It's something that just is ongoing. So if I'm not quite right there, we should be okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Jim or for Dave? I'm sorry, I started talking here.
No, thanks, Steve. No, that all sounds good. Anybody have anything else for them?
No, I don't.
Tom, there were just two other items on your agenda. Since you don't have it, I'll mention the Recreation Board report and the committee business report. There is no committee business. So everything was already handled prior to this. And so the only other thing would be Recreation Board report if you had a report.
No, I personally do not have a report. I was unable to make the meeting last night. And I believe the only big major issue we have is the pool and tennis prices discussion that was pushed to committee of the whole, I believe, or
Yes.
finance.
Yes,
Either way,
was.
it's taken away from me. So I didn't know if originally I asked Chris Mamikos to be on here to give a report. I'm not sure if that's necessary.
Yes,
He asked for committee of the whole. He asked to be placed on
Yeah.
committee of the whole. Tom.
So he wants to talk then about that. That's perfectly fine. In that case, I think that's all I have. Anybody have anything else?
we're good.
I'm good.
All right.
Okay, just
thanks,
give me a
everybody.
few seconds to switch over from Borough Property to Public Works, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, Mr. Goral, I'm good with starting Public Works if you're okay.
Sounds great. Thanks, Steve.
I just have one item. I usually have an update from Three Rivers Wet Weather. And just to remind you, I've been doing this here and also placing it on the council agenda because we are supposed to regularly keep the public up to speed on what's going on with sanitary and stormwater management issues. That's a requirement of the various consent decrees, et cetera. So even though people may wonder, why is this on the agenda here or the business meeting? That's the reason for it. Just like that's one reason why in the Tree City Times, something we're going to talk about later tonight, we repeat stuff over and over again about recycling and about stormwater and about sanitary, because we're supposed to do that to maintain various certifications or what have you. So, but I did want to mention too, that on Committee of the Whole next week, under my report, I'm going to bring up the fact that there is a new consent order. I think everybody saw that. It went out in an email. If you didn't, let me know. But that should be something that you look at and consider and approve this month on the 20th at the business meeting. So if anybody didn't get it in an email, this was a while ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, let me know and I'll get it back out to you. There was one change on it, a one-page change. It's not, I don't think, major, but I am going to bring it up under Committee of the Whole next week. I don't know that anybody needs to be there necessarily from the engineers department or anything, but I just wanted to mention that in case you have some interest in having more discussion on that.
They're having a briefing tonight at the Westinghouse Lodge, actually at this very hour, which
Right.
we can't attend because we're all here.
Yeah, well, Bob Ziskow is representing us over there. And I did try to explain to Three Rivers that, yes, you could use our building, but we have a meeting tonight and they just went ahead and scheduled it anyway tonight, so I'm not exactly sure why they did that, but they did. Mr. Goral, I'm finished if nobody has any other comments or questions for me, though.
Thanks, Steve. Dave?
Thank you. No change on my first item, the MS4 detention pond project. The DE permit for the work has been submitted. We're still waiting for approval on that. The 2021 paving project has been completed except for the stop bars being painted on the streets at the stop signs. The Fall Run Interceptor project bids were open today at 11 a.m. The results are that we received 2 bids. One is from Standard, the low one is from Standard Pipe Services at $316,500. The second was State Pipe Services at $451,400. This is in line with our estimate. The estimate was $300,000. So at this time, we're recommending that the committee and council award the project to Standard Pipe Services for $316,500.
Does anyone have any comments on that?
Dave, you'll send that to me in an email so I have the details right and I can put that on the agenda for the 20th.
Yes,
It's okay to just wait till the 20th, correct?
yes. Yeah, because other councils have to approve it too, I believe. Any other questions on that? Okay, moving on.
Will we have
I'm
a
sorry.
briefing on this consent order? It's a pretty massive tome here. Is Bob Ziskow going to give us a summary of it?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, it was just a little short notice today because, we just opened at 11 o'clock today.
Well, wait a minute. No, you were talking about 2 different things here, right? Patty, what did you ask about again?
I'm asking about the consent decree that we got.
Oh, yes, Bob will give you a summary on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Will that be in time for the 12th, the meeting on the 12th, Dave?
I can make sure it is.
We do it at the committee of the whole because this is, I want to make sure I understand what changed from the prior order and what our obligations are under this now.
I'll have that for you by the 12th.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, moving on, the Ashley Court Storm Sewer project has been completed. The concrete work is also done. The contractor, when he submitted his bill, did submit a request for a change order. This is after the fact. I was not aware of it. He said when he was doing the work, there was a water line that was in the way that was not located correctly. The water company didn't know where it was. And there was also a 15-inch storm line that no one knew was there that comes from up the hill that the borough did not know existed, and they were in the way, and it took more time to do the job. Because of that, they are asking for an additional $3,800. I just received this morning. So if that's agreeable, we can draw up a change order. If not, we can tell them, too bad, you bid the price, you stick to it. We're not obligated to pay because they did not, it states in the specifications that if there's any changes, they are, or requests for change orders, that they have to request that in advance and then get our approval before they proceed. But the job is done, and this is all after the fact. So if you want to just say, sorry, you didn't do the proper procedure, I have no problem with that.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too, Dave. I mean, I haven't seen the contract, but if that's what it says, that's what you have to go by.
Yeah, that's what our specifications say. Anytime there's a request for an extra, it has to be made in advance of the work actually being done, and it has to be approved by someone from the borough, either us or council or manager or somebody, before they actually proceed with the work. So since they did not follow that procedure, I can use that to deny the claim.
I think it's a good idea. They should have followed the procedure.
Right. The last item I have is there was a report at the last, or a person that spoke at the last council meeting from 302 Cascade about ongoing stormwater issues at their property. 2 days later, I met with Jim Thielacker at the property, reviewed the matter. There are two problems. The property is situated at the low spot of an entire block bounded by Cascade, Bevington, Burlington, and Batavia. They are experiencing two problems. First, their backyard is filling up with surface water during heavy rains. And second, water is backflowing into their basement through a floor drain during heavy rain. There is actually a sanitary sewer for that area that runs directly under their house. And we feel that that is a problem where the infiltration into the the sanitary sewer is what's causing the backup in their basement. So what Public Works is going to do there is clean and televise the sewer under the house, see if there is any locations where the terracotta pipe may have leakage around the joints and allowing groundwater in. If that is the case, then we're going to recommend that that pipe be lined. If that is not the case, there's still possibility of infiltration because everyone's sewer lateral, which is the homeowner's responsibility, could have a similar situation where there is infiltration in the pipe. Unfortunately, we don't have any control of that at this point and can't force each property owner to televise their lateral. That may be something that's coming up. I believe that is coming up under the new consent decree, but that can be talked about when that matter is talked about. But in the short term, we can do what we can to alleviate that problem. The problem with the surface water in the backyard, they did install several years ago a French drain from their backyard to the storm sewer, the storm inlet in the street. However, that captures groundwater that infiltrates into their backyard, does not capture surface water. So I'm suggesting that they install at their cost, because it's their sewer, a storm inlet in the backyard, which will capture surface water and transport it through the existing French drain through the storm sewer in the street. I'm also recommending that they clean that French drain, because French drains over time do tend to silt in and clog. That drain was installed, I believe, in 2011. So it's got 10 years worth of silt in it. And that would be my recommendation, that they install an inlet in the yard and clean the French drain entirely at their expense, because it is their pipe. And that should alleviate the surface water problem in their backyard. Any questions on that? I will keep council up to date on what Public Works finds when they televise the sanitary.
Hello? Dave?
Mr. Tommaso?
Yes.
Yes. I just have a question about that line. If we line that is the sanitary sewer, is it going to help solve any problems?
Well, what we want to do first is put a camera in there and see if there is a problem. If there is a problem with pipe joints that may be separated, or if it's obvious that there is some infiltration around the joints in that terracotta pipe, then yes, that would solve a problem. That would prevent groundwater from infiltrating our pipe. Like I said, it doesn't do anything for the laterals to each individual home, but that would be the limit of our responsibility.
Okay, so here's the question I would have concerning dye testing. So we don't know if all of those houses that feed that storm sewer are connected to the storm or the sanitary. So should we not have that? We don't need to televise unless they give us permission. All right, but that's infiltration. What I'm talking about are all the lines separate from going into the sanitary. And if they're not, lining it is not going to do us any good, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, just...
No, that's correct. One of the other recommendations I didn't mention, I should have, was that we're recommending that all the houses in that block be dye tested to make sure that the roof drains are not in the sanitary.
Yeah, because that's like a bowl. I mean, everything that comes down out of every one of those backyards and there's like 15 houses total, but you can eliminate the bottom ones and say, okay, well, maybe there's 11 or 12. All of those have nowhere else to take the water other than into that area. They all
Right.
have to flow there. So I think it would be prudent to make sure that we know that we're not having stormwater running into that area before we start moving on something else. And we should
Correct.
check the joints and camera that stuff as well.
Correct.
How far up that sewer line can we go?
It's about almost 500 feet, 496 feet.
So how much have we done?
Jim?
Yeah, we didn't do anything yet because we were going to bring it up to you guys to get the okay and stuff.
Okay. So I think we need to get the camera, we need to get the film, we need to get the dye test, and then we should start talking about a plan of action. But we
Correct.
don't know where we're going yet.
Correct.
Yeah, Dave, you had that in there too. It says dye testing of surrounding homes. I mean, I think
Correct.
that's, I continuously bring this up and that time after time after time. And everyone keeps telling me, well, the borough 10 or 12 or 15 years ago had to all be dye tested and all of our lines had to be removed out of the storm sewers. Well, it's still the case and it's happening over and over again. So I saw it on someone else's agenda later this evening to talk about dye test requirements or updating them or whatever. But I think that all those houses over there need to be dye tested, and a camera needs to be run up that line to see if there are any cracks in the terracotta or any joints that have separated over the years. Because there's only two ways that the water is getting in the pipe whenever it rains: excess water, and that's through the ground, seeping through the ground and getting in through split joints, or B, off of roofs, through roof drains that are still tapped into those illegally. So one of those two issues is still the cause of this whole culprit. But Mr. Tomasik's right. We need to figure out what it is before we go and spend, $25,000 to line it.
Right.
However, the pipe being that old, it probably does need lined.
Right. That's my recommendation, that we do the investigative work first, and then we have an item in the budget, in the sewer budget next year for that. We don't necessarily have to do it, but in developing the sewer budget for Mr. Morris, we did include that just in case.
There's one other point. I'm not on the camera here for whatever reason. There's one other point I would like to make, and that is the backyard of this residence is lower than the front street.
Yes.
So they put in a French drain, but a French drain is very limited in terms of the amount of water that it can remove, because basically it seeps into the pipe for it to run. Here you have an entire backyard which is lower, and the water has to go into that area. Now, my understanding is they're looking into putting a drain themselves in there and putting more soil in there to bring that level up. Okay, and they're going to put another pipe in there that will drain the water out of that backyard area. Okay,
Yes,
because they can access a storm sewer underneath their property, which is what they did when they put in the French drain. But when you have two rains in a row like that, there's so much water in the soil, such a saturation point, that the water has nowhere to go, even with a French drain there. So I think that they're going to be doing that as homeowners, and that might help solve their problems, to start with.
Right. That's correct.
Is that all for Dave? Dave, I did have one other further thing. Back to the paving project on Avenue A. Is that included in the bids to raise the manholes and put the extensions on the tops?
Yes.
Okay. There's about 2 or 3 we probably need to look at in the upper sections. that are pretty significantly low.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. The spec says that they have to be perfectly level with the new pavement. So if they're not,
They are not.
okay, if they're not, then we'll have them correct that.
Thank you.
Can I say something on that? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, Dave. Yeah, I was already in touch with Joe. Joe's aware of that and the contractor's aware of it. They didn't, I guess they didn't have quite the right size riser rings for those two. So they are going to come in and fix those two manholes on Avenue A. They're aware.
Okay. Yeah, oftentimes they have to order them if they're a different size than the normal.
Right.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Jimmy, foreman's report.
Yeah, I got my list of projects for October. That's item number one. Item number two, if anybody's any questions on number one, just speak up if you want. Any questions? Okay, item number two, we didn't do anything with the Roxbury tree and stump grinding yet. That's going to be later on. Item number three is bond issue purchases. And Steve had put in there, continues on the finance committee. I'm getting estimates on the other two big trucks that were in there. But I was wondering if you guys might be able to approve during the month of October for truck number 73 replacement because of a delay on the chassis. They've already told me that if we ordered sometime in October, we're not going to see this chassis till April or May of next year.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that to keep moving in the right direction with rolling our fleet as we have in the past. So I don't have an objection.
I'll place that motion then, Mr. Burrell, on the agenda for the 20th.
Yeah, I don't have an objection either.
Okay, item number four, the truck that we lost to the fire, we used liquid fuels money to pay for the chassis replacement. And we used the insurance payment to put all the upfitting, the dump bed, the snow plow, all the hydraulics, lights and everything. The truck's over at Imperial Body Company right now. They're waiting for the stainless steel to come in for the bed, and then they're going to be starting on it. He said we should have it before the snow flies, hopefully.
Perfect.
The item number five is decorative light poles. Steve put in the budget for under traffic light maintenance for some additional money to purchase some more poles because we have two knocked over and we only have one in reserve. So a lot of times we get, like when the people have insurance and it's not a hit and run, then we're able to get some extra money because we do the installation and they're billed for the pole plus the installation cost. The last thing is Beaver Drive. We had a request for straightening out the road a little bit. You know, we've had some torrential downpour rains and the upper part of that has washed out. We do snow removal on that only. But I wanted to bring that to your attention and tell me which way you want to go on this. It is a private road.
Jimmy, is Beaver the one that connects the one behind the bistro, that whatever that road is?
No, Beaver runs off of Glasgow. It sort of like runs parallel with Fairview a little bit and parallel with Braddock. It like goes up that hollow there a little bit. There's like three houses
I know
on
where
it.
you're at. Yeah, three. Okay.
The bottom half is actually paved. We didn't do it. The folks paved that, but the upper half was never paved going up to, I think it was either the last or the last two houses there.
Yeah, I know where you're at. Okay. That's probably going to have to be a committee of the whole question. I would assume we're going to need to ask Corbel's input on that. I would say, right, Steve?
Yeah, probably, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, so if we could just push that to committee of the whole,
Okay,
as far as the Beaver Drive issue, unless if anyone else, Jack or Bill, have any other suggestions.
I have a question.
Nothing.
Yeah,
If it's a private road, why do we have to worry about it? I don't get that. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Isn't it like a driveway? If my driveway washes away, it's my problem. I'm not sure if I get it right.
I
yeah,
don't know
I
where-
think that's why I said to bring it to committee of the whole. I mean, I
Okay.
agree, Marcus, to an extent. They all have driveways that lead off this gravel road, but technically, I think even if we put gravel in there or improve it at all, then it could be considered, a street or something. So that's why I was asking. I think that it needs to go to Corbel, and Corbel kind of needs to tell us what direction we should go with this.
Okay.
Can I just mention something too, Mr. Goral? I'm
Yes.
not, I'm not sure where Jimmy is on this, but in the past, he's told me that even though there are many roads, several roads that are private, there are some times when we do certain kinds of maintenance on it just for safety reasons, because you want to have the fire truck or an ambulance able to have access. Now, I'm not sure that applies in this case. That's another reason why you probably want to ask Mr. Corbel, but that's sometimes why we look into that. It's very, very limited though, if we do.
Yeah, and Jimmy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The one that I was referring to is the one off of Center Street, which I don't know that it even, Trenton. And I believe that we do the same kind of thing there. We do the same kind of thing in the top of Vine Alley. So that's why I kind of think that if we just ask Mr. Corbel, I think it would be best. But I think that we do that to an extent, like Steve said. But I think that there's probably a fine line there that we need to watch.
Yeah, you're correct. That's right.
Anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Thielecker? Okay, thank you. And Steve, I think that concludes our report, unless if anyone else has anything else to add.
Okay, I need a couple of seconds and we'll move to operations and policy. Hold on, please.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence, I'm fine with operations if you want to get started.
Ready to go.
Okay, under manager's update, I have several items. First, I repeated on here committee vacancies only because we did have another person, a newer resident who submitted a resume and a little email to Annie about their interest in serving on a committee. And I gave you just the text of the email request, not the whole resume, although I can certainly share that with anybody who wants to see it. But this Chelsea Blackburn Cohen is a newer resident and is interested in zoning or some other aspect she'd like to serve the borough in a meaningful way, she said. So I listed on here also the vacancies that I know of on the various boards. I'm not sure if you want to review her resume or not, but just give me some direction as to whether or not you want to consider her for anything. There is one alternate position on zoning hearing board that is open. And she did mention zoning in this. So I just need some direction from you if you want to first review it or if you want to take action on it or what have you.
Could you forward it along, please?
Sure. Okay. I'll email out her resume to everybody and
Okay.
then let me know how you want to proceed on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she's asking about zoning, that requires certain qualifications that the others don't. So we want to look at her resume before we respond to the zoning request. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just want to make a note on that. Hold on one second, please.
Yeah.
Okay, item B on my agenda. I just wanted to give you an FYI. Annie had sent a letter to you from the Land Bank of about a week or so ago that they're looking for nominations for their board of directors. Just want to make sure you saw that in case anyone's interested. They're looking for nominations due by November 9th. And if you didn't get the email or don't have misplaced it, you can ask Annie to resend it to you in case you are interested in that. Item C, just two outstanding items from September. One, I just want to let you know that we did refer the question about the dye testing ordinance to Steve Corbel. That, if you recall, involved language is no longer good. That takes less of a burden off takes some of the burden off the borough, because the language in there is stuff we don't do anymore. So I asked him to review that, and he wasn't at the meetings in September, if you remember. So I'm assuming he'll have a report for you next week on that. The last item I have, I brought this up also in September. Ms. Keller, who's also in the audience tonight, and would like to take a minute to explain what she's would like to do, if you're okay with that. She had suggested that she'd like to start a community garden, but she wasn't available last month, and you folks told me it was okay to include it on this committee. So if you're okay with that, I think she's still in the audience. I would promote her to a panelist and let her speak if you're all right with that for a few minutes.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Keller, you're active now, and if you'd like to unmute your microphone and take a couple of minutes just to explain what you're looking to do, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can't quite hear you.
I think my headphones don't work, or the microphone doesn't work on them. Hi, everybody. My name is Deirdre Keller. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak tonight. Myself and a couple other community members, including Noah Riley, who's also on this call tonight, are interested in starting a community garden. One property that we were considering is that there are two lots on Barclay. They're both labeled as 617 Barclay, but it's two lots together. They are in delinquent tax status, which means that they would be eligible for purchase through the Vacant Property Recovery Program. So right now we have a group of about 5 interested community members, but we have waited to reach out to the larger community because we wanted to figure out if this property was available before we started getting more people on board. Our plans after we can secure our property, or at least at least know which one we're going to be going for, would be to involve more community members. So build a community garden group. With that group, we would decide exactly how the garden would run, but our hope is that it would be shared garden space that we would use to grow food to give out to people, or to share with community members and people who work in the garden. And we would grow things like vegetables, fruits, but also have some shrubs, maybe some fruit trees, and definitely local native pollinator plants. Currently, the properties are listed at, let's see, hold on one second, let me check. The one appraised lot, 165, the appraised value is 8,600, and 164, the appraised value is 1,200. And our questions, I guess, are: do we have the borough's permission to go forward with community garden? And we had some other questions about, hold on, let me just double check my notes. Is there any zoning or any other barriers that you know of that might get in the way of us being able to do this? If that property, if we're able to purchase it, is it possible that the appraised value could be reconsidered? Because we're not sure why two properties so close to each other would have such different values. And our third question would be is it possible at all to start working on the garden, a garden in that space before, like while we were working on purchasing the property or otherwise securing property? So I'm happy to answer any questions or hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
I'll just step in here and say, I think probably all of your questions are a little beyond our scope. I think almost all of those questions need to be addressed by Steve Corbel because there's probably a lot of little minefields in there that we might not be aware of. So answering questions tonight, I don't think we could do. I think we should push that to Mr. Corbel and get his input.
Mr. Lawrence, might I suggest that you contact Grow Pittsburgh or the Allegheny Land Trust? I can give you contact information if you give me your email, because they help community groups set up garden, and they have the acquisition process and a lot of legal expertise that they can give you in exercising this process, something that's done all the time. They're acquiring, I think, gardens all over the city, all over the county for protecting them for community garden use. So there are resources there that could answer those kinds of questions to you, specific to community garden applications. So if that would be helpful, if you could give me your email, I will send you some introductions. And I agree, we would probably not be able to act on it until we have advice of counsel, but I think you might benefit from talking to some of these community organizations who do this regularly as their professional focus.
Yeah, that point's well taken. Why reinvent the wheel if there's somebody out there that can give you help on this? So that might be a good first step before you even talk to our attorney. Anybody else?
No, Jack, if I could, I just want to say, I think it's a great idea. Like you said, though, I think pretty much everything our hands are kind of tied until Steve Corbel can give us guidance about how to go about doing pretty much any of those issues to get them legally taken care of.
Yeah, okay. All right. Unless there's anything else, thank you very much for the presentation.
Hey, Jack, I have a quick question if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Deidre, do you have an approximation of what the square footage would be for those two abandoned lots?
Let me check if I have that written down. Or Noah, if you're on here and have that information, let me double check.
Or if you just give me the address and then I can even look it up on my time, not to delay delay the committee.
Okay, yeah. So it's 617 Barclay, and here's the lot area for the one is 3,300 square feet, and the second parcel is second parcel is, I think, also listed at 3,300 square feet, unless I just accidentally looked at the same one twice.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Jack. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Anything else, anybody? If not, thank you again for the input. And what's next, Steve?
Ms. Keller, I'm going to remove you from panelists. I may accidentally remove you entirely. So if you want to come back on, I'm sorry about that. Just in case I do that, I want to apologize in advance. Jack, I don't have anything else. I will put the community garden issue on committee of the whole, though I missed part of it because I was talking with somebody else here. So you do want that on committee of the whole for Mr. Corbel, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move that to committee of the whole next week. And
okay,
one of the, can I add one more thing here? Because the question had come up here. Last month we had a member of the rec board, Chris Mamicus, discussing either here on this committee or in borough property, I think it was borough property, about pool and tennis rates. And he wants to talk about that next week at committee of the whole. He asked for permission from Mr. Tomasic. Mr. Tomasic mentioned to me today, just a few minutes ago, that was fine. So I did let him know that. I think it was actually on borough property, not this committee. I don't remember though. But I just
I
wanted to
think it was
mention that
too.
here now. Yeah.
Yeah, I
just
think
want
it
to
was on
mention
borough
that
property.
now. Okay. And I don't have anything, else to report. Go ahead, I'm sorry. What?
Excuse me, very quickly, I believe that I did direct that to be on ops and policy at the last meeting when it was brought up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I was hoping to speak about that tonight, but that's okay. If we're moving it to committee of whole, that's fine with me. But when we make an assignment to go in a direction, then that's where we should stay with it until, and I'm just became aware of this when I'm looking at the agenda here. So anyway,
Yep.
It's going to Cal. We'll talk about it then. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Bill, you're correct. I was kind of forgetting about that myself. It was over in ops and policies. Couple things. Then we're moving ahead with that Savvy Citizen. And as you know, we had an intern here over the summer that put together a communication plan. And one of the issues that came up under that is moving forward about the Tree City Times and whether that should go transfer to digital at some point in the next probably short term. So I asked Angelo if he's on here tonight because he worked with the intern this summer, and he can give a quick rundown of what's proposed in that the plan if Angelo is available.
I just promoted him to panelist. Angelo, I think you're on. Angelo, I think you're muted if you're on.
I'm ready. Okay, so as you all know, one of the recommendations in the communication plan proposal is to transition the Tree City Times to a digital format. Currently, the cost of producing and mailing the Tree City Times is budgeted at $25,000. Moving to a digital format would result in a substantial savings. It would also allow for a more frequent and timely monthly newsletter rather than the quarterly issues. The proposal that's that was put forward suggested, among other things, a 6-month conversion period. Now, I believe that a more realistic approach would be to extend that to 12 months, and that would allow for input from various concerned parties and also to develop a newsletter format that would be more consistent with a monthly publication, and then allow that to be presented to council for review and approval. But I think that the first step should be to get feedback from residents on the proposed change. And I think a survey to understand the readership habits and understand what residents would like to see in a newsletter would help to drive the process. The planned implementation of Savvy Citizen that was just mentioned would allow us to have residents opt in to receive the newsletter electronically at the same time they sign up for Savvy Citizen notifications. And additional details on how a survey would be advertised needs to be discussed, but I think employing the website, social media, and a mailing should help to ensure reasonable participation.
Okay. Anybody have any input here before I make a suggestion?
Yes, Marcus, I have a comment.
Sure. Go ahead, Marcus.
My concern about the Tree City Times is that there are probably a lot of people who don't use internet in that sense, who like their newspaper printed. And if we do any kind of survey, again, it will be probably electronically, we would probably cut them off. My suggestion is if we do any kind of survey, we need also do like a printed thing in the Tree City Times actually, where people can actually cut it out and send it back to us. Like, I don't know how many people are actually reading the Tree City Times, like who don't have internet and who wouldn't be able to get something like that online. Yeah. That's my big concern, but I don't know the numbers. But my concern is a survey, an electronic survey, probably won't catch those people either.
Well, can I respond to that? I think you're absolutely correct. In that I think having a electronic survey as well as a paper survey would be a good idea. And putting it in the Tree City Times would actually also show you how many people are actually looking at the Tree City Times to be able to respond to that survey. So I think there's always this, I think it's a misconception that a lot of people aren't using electronic means to communicate or to get their information. But that's one of the reasons why I think we need to do the survey to lay that to rest once and for all and find out just exactly what the readership is and what people's preferences are.
Yeah, may I speak to this issue?
Please.
I think one of the things that concerns me is that the Tree City Times is so untimely. People are really used to and expecting information that turns around fairly quickly and is current. And I think it isn't quite a magazine where you have feature articles and more extensive explorations that aren't time sensitive. And there are a lot of traditional things in there like the pool sign up and, you know, various programs that go on. But I think when we were doing all those surveys for both the comp plan and the energy climate action plan, we were getting not a lot of, you know, numbers of people responding to our surveys, but proportionally it was in the neighborhood of 10 to 14%. Angela, you can correct me because you were helping tally them. So I think it's important that we use multiple media to get to our constituents. And I'd say if we would go to a primarily electronic monthly and print out a few to have like in public places that could be printed out on an as needed basis, I think that would be a good service. I don't think that we're going to be able to go forward indefinitely with an all paper Tree City Times. I talk to so many people who say, oh yeah, we never read that, you know, but it's just, they put it with the junk mail. I did an informal poll at the farmer's market asking people if they read the Tree City Times, and a lot of people didn't even know about it. I also found out that the mailing goes to the sewer bill payer. And so a lot of our apartment buildings, the Tree City Times goes to someone who isn't even on site, and the residents of the building, like at the corner of Ardmore and Braddock, they've never saw the Tree City Times. So when we get a new issue, I have to take 20 down there and put them in the lobby because people don't get them in their mailbox. So there are flaws in the paper system as well. And I think with the modern times being more and more on electronic media, it also conserves paper and it does have a huge cost saving. So I think that we need to do a careful evaluation about how we transition and also how we recruit people to be in the email interactive system. We have to really cultivate our email mailing list of our citizens. It's not going to be easy, and we are going to need a transition time.
Jack, I want to ask a comment.
Sure, please.
I think we did that kind of exercise, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. We used to have it all like printed in color, and we saved money by going to one color. So I think we should actually take the time to do like a deep dive into everything Tree City Times. You know, I know it's in a budget for 25,000, but how much does it actually cost to print, to send out? How much ad revenue we get? How much does it cost for the editor, like, you know, to actually do all the work, the layout?
That's all in the budget book.
I know, but we should have a deep, if it's all accurate, budget versus real.
Anybody else have any comments? Angela, my thought would be, this is the correct path to go down to explore the options. I wonder if the next step could be at least roughing out, and I'm not sure we'll recruit you for this, Angela, but rough out what we would like to do within the next year to go somewhere with this.
Right.
You know,
I think that the first thing is that we need to get Savvy Citizen up and running, because
Till you get that,
Yeah, because first of all, we'd be able to begin the collection of email addresses for those folks, and at the same time give them an opt-in for the newsletter as well. So that'd serve two purposes. And I think I like what Marcus is saying there, because I think there's a lot of hidden costs that are involved. There's some human resource costs in preparing it. I think the cost that you're seeing, that $25,000, is probably primarily the mailing cost as well as some of the printing costs. And so I think in the aggregate, I think you need to know what those numbers are, because it may be well in excess of the 25,000. And then, develop some kind of a questionnaire that actually can, get down into the weeds of how people are using a newsletter, whether they're reading it or not, and doing that paper as well as electronic.
Yeah, my perception is I think a lot of times now people have a question about what they can recycle or when this or when that's going on. They're just going over to the website. Is that your perception from looking at traffic?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, a lot of the Tree City Times, about every year year and a half, we're reprinting all the same information about what you can recycle and what you cannot. And I'm not sure that's of much value anymore. Anybody who cares about it is going to go to the website, I think. So I guess my suggestion is we ought to look at when Savvy Citizen will be up and begin to implement, and then work a timeline out from that. Does that make sense?
I agree. And I just want to make a comment, with budget coming up next month, we should not try to put it into this budget. We should really take our time to research it properly. It should not be in the budget, like changing the budget next month. It should be something we take our time to research properly. I think it's
and I think Angelo suggested a year's transition, which would keep the $25,000 in the budget for this year, and that would give us time to do this with care. Do we know when Savvy Citizen could be up and implemented?
Well, it's on my list of things to do. And
okay.
I'm going to get to it as soon as I can. I have information from Ken. I had already talked to them at the same time Ken was talking to them too. I just haven't had a chance to finish anything yet with them. That's the first thing. The second thing is people may be looking at the Tree City Times for recycling, but when I get asked questions on grants, for example, that I'm applying right now anyway, they want to know what all we're doing to educate the public on stormwater or recycling or sanitary sewer. And being able to say that it's printed in our quarterly newsletter helps. Now, will there be a time when they won't want that and they'll say, yes, as long as it's on the website, that's fine? Probably. But right now, they like to see multiple uses. They would like to see, for example, maybe one of the committees like Environmental Advisory Committee, possibly having classes for people, having public meetings themselves for people on stormwater and recycling or what have you. At one time, we tried to do that.
We did that.
So in any case, those are things that the Tree City Times can do. I'm not saying we shouldn't get rid of it or change it. Yeah. I'm just saying there is a reason why the printed version still works, and there's a reason why we repeat articles from there periodically. That's the reason. The best thing that Marcus mentioned, Angela mentioned, you mentioned, Jack, is take time, plan it. That's the one thing that tends to happen here sometimes too much, where we just get an idea and jump right into it. I like the idea of taking the time to plan and make sure you do it the right way. That you can have all the money and everything, like Marcus was just saying about the budget and all that. So I think that's the best way to go about it. Take your time, make sure you have exactly, have a focus on what you folks want to see there. And of course, get that in the surveys you do with the residents who are reading it or the businesses who are reading it.
Then I think the idea is we should plan in the coming year to do these surveys, discuss the options, and then make a decision at the end of probably when we're budgeting next fall. But we really can't start much of any of that. The clock can't start ticking until we get Savvy Citizen up and running. So maybe once you get that going, this can reappear on the Ops and Policies Committee and we can talk about moving forward. That sound good?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this month we'll get that started. So I just need to get the budget done. And then I'm hoping we'll get that started.
Okay. Had one other thing I brought up last time, and I didn't get information out
Jack,
to
we have
everybody.
a hand from Angelo up. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one final thing. I think concurrently, we can still begin the process, and I'd be happy to do this, is begin the process of creating a survey. It doesn't have to go out right away, but it'll take some time to come up with the right questions and for us to make sure we're covering all the bases, and also to do what Marcus said, to look at all the costs that are actually involved, right down to the
and that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can be done, like you said, concurrently, and then once Savvy Citizen is implemented, then that we'd be we'd be on the road to getting this done. So I think that sounds good. Anything else, Angela?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot for the time. I appreciate it very much. The other thing I brought up, I think last month, and I said I did not get anything sent out to you. Mr. Corbel sent me information about what the county has. I had mentioned that about a year and a half ago, we suspended enforcement of the ordinance about outside burning because we basically don't permit it. This isn't urgent, but I think we ought to not permanently have ordinances we don't enforce. We probably should change the ordinance or enforce it. If we want to fall into line with the county, I can send you around the information about what the county permits. It's reasonably restrictive, but it does allow outside burning. So maybe that's what I should do, so we can talk about this next month and not pursue it tonight. My other concern about if we ban it and start enforcing that ordinance, the only time it could be, people are going to do this no matter whether it's legal or not. And the only time we're probably going to hear about is when we've got two neighbors having issues with each other, and this is a good excuse to fight. So I would like you guys, everyone, to think a little bit about where you think we should move forward relative to what we have on the books versus what the county is. So if it's okay, I'll send you the links he sent me to look at over the next month. Any thoughts, anybody?
Yeah, can I have a comment, please?
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. I think it's like, especially with COVID, I think it became more and more prevalent. And it's like a common practice. No one seems to be burning waste in their yard, which I think our ordinance tried to prevent originally. So just for recreational use, I think it makes sense. And I agree with you. We should kind of cut and paste Allegheny County ordinance and should look at it. I think it makes perfectly sense. Rather than having a gray area, I rather think we should just take someone else's ordinance like the counties.
Okay. All right. I'll send you out this week. I'll send everyone in the committee or the council the links he sent me.
I thought, Jack, I thought you did ask Steve Corbel to review that, didn't you?
Yeah, he just sent me some links so I could understand what the county was doing. He and I never got. It's fairly straightforward. So, but I didn't send it out to everyone else in the council, and I think that's probably the next step, so you can really understand it. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, I think Mr. Marco had wanted to step in on Ops and Policies tonight.
Yes, we have received a grant for $5,000 for a complete streets policy, which is part of the implementation of the active transportation plan that we adopted. We need to approve hiring of a consultant. They are really anxious that we have a consultant and not try to do this alone. And I would like to manage this through the Planning Commission rather than the Environment Advisory Council. And so I would like to ask council's input on both of those things. I have spoken to Dave DeGioia about whether McMahon would be willing to continue and do the Complete Streets policy work with us. They're delighted to do that. They've done a number of them, and they said it does follow right along with the work we've just finished on the active transportation plan. So I would like to talk about, having the planning commission serve on the steering committee function rather than the Environment Advisory Council, because it is going to involve some possible changing in zoning if we decide to go around the parking situation in the business district, for example. So I think they would be better positioned to evaluate the things that will be discussed in that manner. So I wanted to
Yeah.
your committee for disposition of this policy matter, which will end up being a policy ordinance at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, my position is it should be going to the planning commission, not the EAC. I think it's the planning commission role in this situation. Anybody else?
Marcus,
If so, I think we should just proceed with that.
I have a question. Like you said, Patty, we got a $5,000 grant. How much is that consultant going to cost us? I mean, is it like
they will do it for the fixed fee. We do not pay anything beyond that.
How much is the fixed fee?
He will do it for the 5,000.
Okay, so it's pretty much
it's just an
covered.
It's
Yeah.
an add-on to the work they've basically already done.
No, I just wanted to know that because I just wasn't sure. Because if you get a $5,000 grant, we have to pay $50,000 for a consultant. I totally agree with you.
I have a question. Does this need a vote to appoint? Are you saying to have Dave DeJoya doing it again, McMahon, or does it need a vote or not?
I don't know whether we need a vote of council for a $5,000 allocation. Do we do that?
So I'll put it under report that we discussed it at this committee meeting and that the members all agree without objection to just continue with McMahon.
But we don't need to bid it again, do we? Because it's kind of a continuation of an existing project.
No, I'm not saying that. I just didn't know if you wanted to vote. If you don't want one, I think we can just simply mention it under the general report as an item that was agreed to without objection.
Yeah, I think that's fine. This isn't a major.
And Jack, I think you and I or you should talk to Paul Kimikata about, and I'm happy to go to a planning commission meeting and brief him on the whole process and, bring them up to speed on where we are and
Okay.
things. So
Is he the chair? Who's the chair now?
Paul is the chair.
Paul is? Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure. Okay, I'll get in touch with him.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't believe I have anything else that I wanted to bring up tonight on ops and policies. So I believe we can move on.
Well, I have one item under committee business, item C, Environmental Advisory Council. Their annual report was submitted and I attached it to your agenda for everybody to review.
Okay.
I don't know that you need to have any discussion. That's up to you. I'm just saying I want to mention that.
Okay.
I think it's.
I didn't have any.
I think it's really admirable that the committee submitted a report of their activities summarized for the year. I wish everybody did that. It makes it really easy to see the accomplishments of this group in the course of their year. They do a lot of work for us.
Good. Did I miss anything, Steve?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, then I think we're done with ops and policies. Thanks, everyone.
Give me a few seconds. We'll go right to public safety. Okay, I'm fine with public safety, Mr. Herberdare.
I'm ready.
Okay, the only item I want to mention under our standing items is we are still working on restoring the camera system down at the Public Works Garage. We do have a quote from SSA. We're working on that now. We also are looking at a couple of cameras up here. And that's not quite ready to go yet. We're trying to determine what we need to do with our system, if we have room on the system for one or more interior or exterior cameras. So we hope that will happen soon. But the Public Works cameras were supposed to have happened when we moved and we didn't get that done. So that's something that's coming out of the building fund that we still have money for, just so you're aware of that. And of course, anything that's done here in this building, same thing. that would come out of that building fund. But there was some difficulty about whether or not we have room on the camera up here. That's why we're trying to work that out. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
Okay, we can move to number 2. Most of those things are routine stuff, but the last line, it says approved expenses. Do we know what that means?
Yeah, that was, okay, this was from August, if you recall. That was those, they had submitted bills about the truck, the truck that we own. And council reviewed them back in August.
Okay.
Realize you're always late on this. You're always a month late because, so that was
I
already.
remember now. I was just thinking of something new. Okay, we're good. Jack and Tom, do you have any comments about that?
No.
Nope.
Okay. EMS report. I believe the chief Mastandrea is here. I wonder if he wants to talk about it, or I guess we have a chief's report too. So maybe we skip it and we go back to the chief's report.
Do you want me to let Frank in? Is that what you're saying, Marcus? I'm sorry.
No, I think I was just getting Jack's and Tom's. I think we can just keep him under chief's report. Just to keep
He had
it
mentioned to me, he just wanted to be available in case you had questions for him.
Yeah, we
If he needs
will give him time on the chief's report. I think he can hear us. Right. So next we have Ardmore traffic signs. I received an email from a resident, and he had a proposal to basically improve the signage for our 35-mile zones. Kind of like PennDOT often does when the speed limit changes. They have this orange/yellow diamond on top of the speed limit. And he wrote to PennDOT because he assumed PennDOT is responsible. And PennDOT wrote back, no, the borough is responsible for signage. So I would like to take the time maybe to investigate, because I heard also that we can actually, if it's like Ardmore is going to a residential area, that we may be even allowed to increase the area of the 35 miles, because it seems to be a little bit weird where it starts and ends. I think it could be expanded because it's still kind of residential area in Edgewood Acres and everywhere else. So I wonder, first I would like to get our Chief Williams' input on that, what his opinion is, if it would make sense to increase the area of the 35 miles, and if we should do some research on that. Chief Williams, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, I do. I can't get my video to come on. It said the host will not let me in. So Steve, if you want to give me the okay, maybe I can get my video on. Either way, I think we need to recheck this authorization to have the ability to change speed limits on the Ardmore. I don't know if we really have that ability. I think since it's a state road, we really can't. Maybe we would have the opportunity to put some road signs up and maybe those little markers to get people's attention. That would be a great idea.
Yep.
I don't think we really have the authority to change speed limits, and I think we should look into this a little more thoroughly and make sure we can do things, and things we can't do. I think we need to be specific about what we can and can't do here.
Yes, because PennDOT responded to a resident, not to us. So I think we need to officially do all that stuff. Okay. Jack, Jack and Tom, do you have any comments on that?
As long as you're going to do someone's going to do some research on that. Chief, you had mentioned somewhere in the last couple months about the value of signage warning of the upcoming traffic light that's Bevington from people going westbound because there's a curve and you can't see that.
Yes.
Could you also explore that too? Because with the trees growing up, you actually don't know there's a light there much anymore.
I agree. And we've had accidents there, and some of them were due to speed, some of them were due to other situations. But as you know, when people do get off the parkway, their speed is fairly significant. And if they get the green light at Morrow, they're going to keep sailing down there until they actually get a traffic signal to slow them down. And unfortunately, that may come up a little quicker than they expect when they're not really looking for it. And maybe the trees block it and there's really no signage warning saying, hey, red light ahead, or maybe we should slow down. Because on the
I thought you had a good idea, and maybe if there's going to be an effort to research what's allowable, if that could come up, that might be the value, because they really rip as they get off the parkway and go down to Bevington. So,
We had even
thank you.
suggested maybe a yellow flashing light if the state would be willing to do something like that, just to get people's attention. That would be a little more
Yeah.
a help for us.
Hmm.
Steve
Well, that'd be
Morris,
great if we could pursue it. Thank you.
Steve Morris, you have a comment.
The last time we tried to do anything with speed, anything other than signs, PennDOT told us you had to do a traffic study. And when that came about, we had to do the traffic study. We had to pay for a traffic study to be done. I don't think it was just the engineer. If you recall, I don't know who was on council back then, but if you recall, they wanted to lower the speed limit in the business district. PennDOT only agreed to going down 5 miles an hour. After the traffic study was done, people, I think, wanted to go down 10, something like that. But in any case, PennDOT required a traffic study, and they required us to hire somebody to do it.
Patty?
One of the things that we acquire when we do an active transportation plan is standing to apply for grants under the implementation of that plan that will cover things like a traffic study for speed, as well as crossing walk safety, and as well as increasing of sidewalk width and things of that nature. So I'm looking right now for what grants we are eligible for that don't require a 90-10 match or something, that we can seek some funding to do exactly these kinds of implementations, because those recommendations are in the active transportation plan. So we have that plan already approved and voted on by council. It has been submitted to the DOT. It has been submitted to the county, and we've begun to have some of those conversations. But what we are going to need is some implementation funds. I'm also hoping that should the infrastructure bill ever actually pass, that funding that comes to the communities can be used for these kinds of things, especially if we're including safer non-motorized transportation options and public transit, like bus stops that are safe on the roadsides. So I think it was important to get the active transportation plan done, because it puts us in the queue to be eligible for these further implementation grants that are out there. And I am in the process of researching some of that right now. I did miss one deadline for the crazy steps, which I apologize for. I just missed it. So hopefully we'll be getting some more resources into this shortly.
Okay, I just want to summarize. We are not looking into lowering the speed from 35 down to whatever. We're just thinking about maybe increasing the zone of 35.
Exactly.
And we're also looking into more signage. So who would be the person to research that? I think Mr. Gilland, I guess. Steve Morris, what do you think?
Dave does have contacts at PennDOT, so it probably could be him, yes.
Okay. Yeah, again, I don't want to rush anything. I just want to do our homework. If we can legally extend our 35 milestone, I think it would make sense, and get better signage, it would make sense too. Okay. That's it for that. Next, Chief's report. So Chief Williams, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Erldinger. First off, I'd like to ask to maybe get our efforts moving forward to get a new vehicle for next year. I'm a little concerned, just as Mr. Thielacker had spoken earlier about the difficulty in getting a truck. I think we're going to have a little difficulty with a hybrid vehicle because of the amount of computer, chips and other necessities that go with that car. So I'd like to get that process started so I can acquire a bid and maybe make a move to get that process just in generally moving along, because it's already October and usually I'm here around this time asking to do that. So secondly, I just wanted to let you know that we were unfortunately going to have to cancel the hayride for this year. I mean, I know you probably can realize that the COVID situation has not helped our ability to have this event, knowing that we would have children sitting next to each other with their parents wall to wall in a small rectangular area, even though outside we couldn't guarantee the masking, and the staff who would be assisting us is basically borough staff who's older and would be put at risk as well, along with a long line of people, which will be difficult to control. So again, I think for this year, just based on the situation, we're going to go with the safe route and not move forward with that. And hopefully next year we'll have these problems resolved and we can have maybe even a bigger hayride next year. Thirdly, I'd like to mention that there is a drug take back going to happen on the same day of the hayride from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Westinghouse Recreation Center parking lot through the Boy Scouts. That's a Eagle Scout project by William Courtright. We and the EMS are going to be there with him to make sure that this is okay and handled well, and just to give him a little support. But this is really all him. He did most of the work on this. He's coordinated everybody's efforts, and he's done a great job. So anybody that has anything out there that they need to get rid of here in the next few days, gather it up and bring it up on Saturday between 10 and 2. That's all I have, Mr. Robledale.
Thank you. I saw the yard signs. I think it's a great program to do that, to get those trucks out of the public would make sense. Thank you.
So Marcus, if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe make suggestions with council's approval. One, I'd like to see if we can maybe do a little promotion for William on our website. When we've had events here in the borough in the past, Angela's been able to kind of create like a, I don't know what the technical term of it is, but it's basically like it pops up on the very front of our website when you go to our website page with, you know, an announcement of the event, and then you have to kind of exit off of it in order to go about and do your business on the website. So maybe I'd like to do something like that. And also maybe I'll work with the chief and Mr. Morris to create a swift reach announcement for that, because I do consider that to be a public safety issue, right? Where we're taking, some people, you know, residents and whatnot who have passed on, and there's still like tons of narcotics left over in the house that, you know, people, we're providing them an option to safely dispose of it. So I think that that can be classified as a public safety outreach, and maybe we can do some sort of messaging for that as well. So just wanted to bring that up and make sure that, you know, if anybody on council will oppose that, but if not, I'd like to move forward with those two items.
I think it's good, great ideas. We should do both. So,
okay.
Anyone else in council has an opinion on that?
I have a question. Chief Williams, could you give us a status on the training for the LEAD program? Are you in training yet for that? And where are we on that process? I know we voted a resolution to participate, and I just don't know where you are on that process. Could you give us an update?
We are still waiting to make sure that we have received the grant. I believe we have gotten the grant money. So the next part of the process is to find someone who can manage the work that comes with that. And that would be someone who could deal with the mental health aspect, you know, any of the people that we would have to put forward to that program. We need someone to manage that. And I know that the committee was working on finding whether it be a company or a group of people that they would contract with the money that they've gotten from this grant, so that we could start moving them into that process. But again, I think that they may have to put out a request for that to see if we can find the proper group, the right people to do this, because this is an important job, and it's going to be difficult to find the exact or the right group of people or company to manage this for us. And again, this is going to help us in unbelievable ways with problems that we really can't deal with. I mean, there are things that we can do as a police department, and, you know, we could put people into the court system. We could take them to jail and they could be back out, and we could do it again next week, because we really haven't solved the person's problem, and we haven't really been able to direct them to someone else who could. Again, we are limited on what we can do, and we do need that kind of help, whether it be for mental health, for drug rehabilitation, or maybe just for people who are homeless and have other problems. We need to have an outlet or an outreach of someone to help manage that. And that's what this really is. I mean, this is going to be something that when we have a problem that we can't manage based on what we have available to us, we will probably have somebody that we can at least give that information to, hand that person over and say, hey, this is someone who can help you. Maybe this is someone who can get you housing. Maybe this is someone who will help you find a job. Maybe if you need rehab, they can find a place for you to go. Again, this stops something that may otherwise hurt them for their whole future and their whole life.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe big cities, like really huge cities, they have people actually on staff, on police staff to do that kind of stuff. Obviously, we are way too small for that.
Yes.
So it makes sense. Thank you. All right.
Mayor, did you want to mention anything about Halloween this year?
Yeah, so we're gonna hold Halloween as we normally do. This year it falls on a Sunday evening, so we're gonna hold it from 6 to 8 p.m. That aligns also with Churchill, Wilkins Township, and Chalfont always follows us. So all the communities in the surrounding area will kind of have trick or treat at the same time. So we should probably put that out on the website whenever we have an opportunity to, and then anybody who's got social media can go ahead and, shout on your social media platforms as well, please. And Steve, if you would, through our Twitter accounts, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So next, Steve, can you please promote Chief Mastandreu to panelists so he can give his report? Chief Mastandreu, can you hear us?
Frank, you're up.
Okay, I can hear you, but it won't let me start the video. So as I was saying to Steve earlier, I really don't have anything to report. I did forward our monthly report to him. It's going to stay available if there's any questions that council had for me.
I looked at the report, but I don't think there's anything. I think there was one residence which was like 5 calls, but I don't think it's a good question for public. So I don't think I should ask this question. But I think it looks like you're busy.
Yeah, it's not unusual to have what we call a frequent flyer because of their medical condition or something like that, that we're there multiple times. So that's not unusual. I mean, other than that, we still are doing okay with our PPE supplies. And so far, still 0 cases at our station. So we're all chugging ahead and trying to keep everybody as safe as we can.
And if someone refuses services, there's nothing you can do either. I guess we're a free country, even medically.
Yeah, as long as they're consular and oriented, they can always make their own decisions.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay.
Anyone else has questions for Chief Mastandreu?
Oh, thanks, Frank.
Nothing.
I think
Marcus, one more thing, if you don't mind, I'm sorry. Steve Morris, if I send you details for a press release, would you be able to submit one at what you deem the appropriate time for Community Drug Take Back Eagle Scout project?
Yeah, I'm only going to be available tomorrow for part of the day, and for Thursday, even just a few hours. Then I'm out until next Tuesday.
So I'll send it to you this evening. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
okay. I think that's it for tonight.
Okay.
Nobody has anything else, then I'm going to end everything.
All right.
That
Thank you,
it?
Steve. Bye.
Okay, see